I'm not a shot of tequila, but I am gonna answer that question. Cheers, guys. Thank you for having me. This is coming online. I don't care. Hey guys, welcome to Tech and Tequila, the show where we interview the smartest funders and founders in India over tequila-based drinks. I'm Adam.
I'm Mansi.
And today we're lucky to have Nihaal Mariwala with us today. He's the founder of Setu, an online Ayurvedic brand and wellness brand. Nihaal, thanks so much for coming today.
Thank you guys for having me.
So Nihaal, talk to us a little bit
Hey,
about...
we drink first, yo.
Oh.
Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers, guys.
Editing that out. Cheers.
No. What? So I don't get to shit on you?
No.
This is coming online. I don't care.
Fair enough, Adam. Anyway, getting into it, Nihaal, talk to us a little bit about your journey from OmniActive Health Technologies, which is obviously your father's business, and how you kind of thought about making that transition into building a business within it,
Right.
and just how you manage that and kind of how the dynamic within
Sure.
OmniActive and Setu exists.
Sure.
What is that dynamic?
So my background a little bit is traditionally I have a family business that's been in the food and kind of flavor and beverage ingredient space, and I spent some time working for OmniActive, which is my dad's company in the US, selling into a lot of health and consumer brands in the US, and was kind of struck by both the width and depth of the market in terms of so many different types of brands across different channels, everything from doctor driven to direct to consumer to direct selling, different brands that had been built off. There are some very sizable brands that have been built off just single ingredient products. So taken one health benefit, or they've taken one ingredient and just run with it. And the thing I was most struck by when I was working at OmniActive, essentially selling into a lot of these brands, is in India, those spaces were traditionally owned by either big pharma or big food. So it was either big food launching not really better for you health and nutrition products, but kind of talking about better for you products, or it was big pharma pushing products through prescriptions through doctors, and so that was kind of the situation at the time, and I started to develop an idea around that, thinking that we have something different and unique at OmniActives in terms of expertise around natural ingredients and natural products. How do we take that and translate that into something really different in the Indian market, and kind of trying to break through the clutter and monopoly over both distribution and marketing that traditional big food and big pharma businesses have. So that's kind of how the angle that I was coming at it from. Setu, the brand I run today, is an independent entity. It was kind of started within OmniActives, but now is spun out and functions independently.
So coming back to your point about looking in India and then figuring out a sufficient place to start. Wellness is a massive space in India. How do you think about Setu's positioning, and how have you strategically tried to isolate a niche within that segment that you can then scale out from? Obviously, that's a consistent work in progress. But what we started with is and perhaps that was not the best way to start. Is we started with looking at the biggest possible categories out there. And I think that's actually one of the biggest mistakes that we made, is that we looked at categories just by size of people that are looking for solutions. So we looked at things like diabetes and heart and cardiovascular disease and stuff like that. And I think we didn't retain perspective on what our core product was, which is more in the realm of preventive health than curative. And I think that's a large part of the mistakes that we made in our first year. We just finished essentially our first year. And the focus in the new year is to shift to more preventive and kind of wellness-based therapies, rather than looking at curative or supporting disease therapies. So when we started, we picked
the biggest categories possible, which were diabetes, cardiovascular disease, liver health, digestive health, and then the one category that came out of our own capability was essentially vision and mental health and performance. And that's something where we had already developed a unique set of solutions that we felt were pretty distinguished from what is available in the market, and was well suited for the time that we were launching. And interestingly enough, out of all of the products, the category that we identified as having the lowest potential to scale is the one that's grown the fastest for us, which is vision. And I think that's down to the right circumstances, in that it is a preventive or wellness therapy. It's something that's been easier for us to sell online, and it's something where we truly have a very differentiated and unique product. And so a lot of learnings from kind of making those mistakes about picking the wrong categories to play in the first year, that we're trying to use to inform better decisions over the course of the next couple of years.
Right. So this is kind of touching upon like product market fit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So how do you think about it when you're looking at Setu, and kind of what metrics do you look at to make sure that you are hitting like the right product market fit?
Yeah, that's a great question, and like I was saying before, I think that was the biggest gap that we had. Is we had a big gap between what the market was looking for and what we were offering, and the way that we're trying to hone in on that going forward is looking at what type of products are selling out there today. We've started to do a lot more kind of in-depth qualitative consumer research also, which is something we shied away from in the beginning. We said, let's just invest money in product, let's test the product out and see how it goes. Now we've kind of taken a couple of steps back and said, let's combine that with more focus groups, more getting into the nitty-gritties of what are the types of products people are looking for. And then at the end of the day, it's just a little bit of guesswork and kind of matching those up with what we're able to do. And so I always had a hunch all along that this vision opportunity, for example, could be big, because amount of time people are spending on screens, blah blah blah. It seemed like that would be an easy sell, but it was also the type of sell that like nobody had done before, essentially. But through making sure that our messaging was delivered the right way, I think we've been able to kind of hone in on who our target audience is better. Because what we were doing before is kind of just, it was a spray and pray approach, essentially.
Right.
And it was, let's throw these concepts out there and let's see what holds.
What sticks?
Now, you've really gone into depth about the nuances of your D2C strategy,
Yeah.
and how layered and nuanced that can be from a content and a marketing perspective. But if you've set yourself up, publicly to say, oh, in 3 years we're going to be a 100 crore brand, do you really think it's practical that you're going to reach there as a mostly D2C company? Because I don't know, you can tell me in your research if you've run into a lot of D2C brands in India that have actually grown to that scale.
Sure.
So if you have set that goal, help us work backwards.
Yeah.
And
Kind of
then
what
the
your
milestones and the plan.
product roadmap looks like.
So, interesting note actually. What I said was, and obviously, the way the media interprets it is one thing. But what I said was, I'm not sure if we'll do it, but someone is going to do it in this category.
Oh.
Obviously, ideally, we will be the people that do it. But that's obviously one important disclaimer. There are people that have done it. But again, the challenge is to do it as, what they call in the US a digitally native vertical brand. It's I haven't seen anyone that's done it as that. I've seen people that have done it by, listing on Amazon, going out to all the marketplaces and doing that. And there are a few brands, in the health and wellness space. There are some that have done all right. In the foods, more in the food space, there are companies that have done that pretty effectively. So my answer to your question is yes. I think that's something that can be done. But one of the ways that has to be done is a consistent expansion of your product portfolio. from what I've seen. So on average today, I have 13 unique products. An average competitor of mine has anywhere between 75 to 150 different SKUs. And obviously that's, it's still in kind of 80-20 game in that they're selling very little of all the others that they have. But that choice is going to be really important for us to make going forward, is how many Me Too products are we going to add into the mix, and how many truly differentiated products are we going to add into the mix. And obviously my focus is trying to bring in those truly differentiated products, and I think with the right basket, it's possible to get to the type of scale you're talking about.
Right.
And it's been done, or it's being done by brands out there already.
So, I mean, apart from like your product roadmap, I think it's interesting to kind of maybe go back to potentially the app that you're building.
Yeah.
Is it something that is almost like a talk doc, like where you like genuinely connect with nutritionists around the country and kind of get advice and connect with them?
Yeah.
Or is it something that is very much I need a question, and then because you have like an AI bot enabled sort of platform, you're able to kind of give me an answer immediately?
And as a part two to that,
Sure.
is this a separate business, or is this a lead gen tool for the?
No, the idea is that we try to make it a lead gen tool
Right.
for an expanded portfolio, more than what we have today in terms of product, an expanded portfolio of health, wellness, better for you nutrition products essentially. Now, the direction of the app or the platform or the business itself, whatever you may call it, is a little bit unclear. It's still something we're working on. But the underlying cause behind it, outside of it also being a useful way for us to be able to build loyalty and lifetime value, is the simple fact that for nutrition advice today, we see that there is a dearth of organized resources that you can go to. You can't really even have a conversation with your doctor about nutrition, because nutrition is not a part of nutrition training is not a part of medical training programs. There's obviously a proliferation of nutritionists and dietitians in the country today. That's not an organized sector either. There's no, you don't need a certain type of license to be able to practice. So the angle at which we're looking at that is to say that, why can't we use things like AI and machine learning tools to be able to look at simple metabolic models, get people to obviously engage with the platform about tracking their meals, their exercise, all of that, and that's the type of data you can pull from multiple different sources, and actually use real metabolic science and metabolic models that typically are established by the National Institute of Nutrition or USDA and stuff like that, to look at how do you track outcomes for food and nutrition investments that people are making. Because one of the big kind of consistent themes in the feedback that we get is people want to know, and this holds true for healthy food as well. In our consumer research, we've seen people want to know that if I'm spending X amount of money on a different type of oil or a different type of bread or a different type of grain, there is a perceived payoff versus there is an actual tangible outcome. People want to know what that outcome is and track against that outcome. And that's not really something that's available to people today. Even if you go to a nutritionist, it's here's the program, you'll lose X kilos by the end of this journey. That's not really what health and wellness is about. It's about building better habits specific to your situation, and being able to track outcomes that have essentially payoffs.
Well, kicking off from the whole notion of creating beneficial outcomes, let's create some other kinds of outcomes.
Yeah, let's do it.
With the truth or tequila
My
round.
is over already, so.
Oh,
Great.
perfect timing! Perfect timing.
You have enough space to have some
Yeah.
tequila shots if need be.
Truth or tequila sounds deadly.
Yeah, it's deadly. But let me remind you about the rules. It's very simple.
Okay.
Either tell and answer the truth to the questions we ask, or if you choose not to answer, you can take a shot.
Okay.
You can also just take a shot.
Or I can do both.
You
Or
could
you can
do
do
both,
both.
or if you do answer all of the questions
If you do answer all the
truthfully,
questions, then we have to take a
Adam
shot.
and I have to take a shot.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a fair deal.
Yeah, it does.
Let's do
Yeah.
it.
Want to kick it off?
Sure. All right, so you mentioned that Setu is now spun off as an independent entity, but if, say, your father, your family disagrees fundamentally with the direction that the company goes with, who takes the final call?
My father, because he pays the bills. I mean, essentially, he funds the company today. We fund the company, the family does. So, yeah.
Slightly more personal, but obviously the Mariwala name in India kind of carries some gravitas,
Yeah.
right? So do you think after starting your business, you're taking more or less seriously because you have this sort of name attached to you?
I'm going to have a shot at tequila. But I am going to answer that question.
Great. As long as you take the shot.
Then we don't have to.
Exactly.
Yeah. I do get, that's an interesting question. I think it does add a decent amount of mileage, particularly with like the press. Like Economic Times is happy to interview me, but like I don't think they would be otherwise, you know?
You never know. Tequila was happy to interview you.
I mean, I'm honored, but I think that would have happened regardless of my last name, fortunately, or not.
Of course.
And I think it helps to a certain extent, you know, when you're trying to establish relationships with VCs and stuff like that. But I mean, it's never going to compensate for a lack of results and performance and execution. So it's really
True. Can you quantify like the biggest mistake that Setu has made so far?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could. I don't know if it's the most fascinating type of number, but we essentially, you know, we put a decent amount of time and money and working capital into diabetes and heart as categories, and we developed differentiated products in those categories. So we have 4 differentiated products in those categories. All of those are basically write-offs. So there's some amount of inventory there, but there's obviously R&D spend. There's some amount of marketing spend, and then there's obviously the intangible kind of emotional attachment to those products that it's tough to get people within the team to let go of products as well, particularly if you're a salesman. Your instinct is add more products into the basket for us to sell. So that, I would say, is probably between those 4 products over the last year across R&D, marketing, and actual inventory is probably at the most maybe 40 lakhs.
Sort of like kind of taken a different course, but what would you say is the worst branding that you've seen of a competitive product in India?
That's a good question. For competitive products.
Take a shot if you want.
Yeah, maybe I will.
Oh yeah, that accelerated the shot just there as soon as you said that.
I mean, I think this is obviously, it's not competition per se. It's a reference point in a similar or the same category. But I think Patanjali, for example, is just, I think it's a bunch of nonsense really at the end of the day. It's a whole set of Me Too products, really quite poorly branded and packaged, sold at 5 to 10 rupees lesser than competition. And I'm not a huge Baba Ramdev fan, so I guess Patanjali.
So I kind of wanted to understand from your perspective, because you are a first-time founder.
Yeah.
What are the kind of tools or maybe even the books that you've read or the resources that you use to kind of equip yourself to manage a team? Because it's hard.
Yeah,
it's incredibly hard.
Yeah, it is difficult. Books, particularly in the context of a team, I can't say that I've read anything that's been very helpful. But 2 books I think that have helped a lot. Start with Why is one. Another book named Hooked by a guy named Nihaal, I think.
Yeah, the 4-step sticky retention.
Exactly. Which I think is something that we want. Yeah, we want to build. I want to make sure we instill that kind of culturally, so that manifests in our employees, in our products, in our messaging. Because obviously, loyalty and repeat use of these products is what defines and drives better outcomes. So those two books, definitely. In terms of how to manage a team, that's where I think the whole working closely with my dad has paid off, because I've seen his evolution from running what was a very traditional, very kind of commodity price-driven business to a kind of cutting-edge, research-driven, high-margin business. And I've seen that evolution from the time I was maybe 12, 13 to today, across products, messaging, and most importantly his team. And a huge evolution and huge shift in the nature of his team and how he manages his team, and how he's kind of taken a step back and allowed other people to blossom and flourish. And that's obviously also an ongoing process, because that company has its own struggles and is at its own point in its journey. But that's something I think that I learn a lot from, on an almost daily basis, because we share an office and we share a home, so it kind of works
That
well.
works out.
Yeah.
Cool.
Helps me as well, because I work with and live with my sister.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're similar.
Yeah. So to learn from that
Obviously not
experience,
to the
I think
same
is
scale, but
yeah.
it is a great learning.
Yeah.
It's a huge learning curve.
Yeah.
But it's a good opportunity. So because you're quote unquote writing off a lot of these, initial sort of trial products, have you had to fire anyone? And
No.
No, not at all. You haven't had to have any sort of like difficult discussion.
So difficult conversations, definitely. No need to downsize or anything, because fortunately what's happened is the products that have done well have significantly compensated for the products that have done badly. And today, over the next month and a half, we're in the process of launching a brand and a packaging refresh. We're also in the process of launching over the course of this year, I would say about 8 to 10 new products, which is a big task for us internally to manage. But it's something we're super excited about, because they are, I would say, in some instances they're best in class, and in some instances I would say they are products that don't exist in the market today. Okay. And so that's something we're super excited about.
No, I think, from our point of view, we've learned a lot from everything you've had to share with us now, but I think we like to end our shows with a last shot of advice.
Let's do it.
So let's do that.
Let's do it. I think that's a great idea.
We should all have one, actually.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I'm not going to shy down.
I want the smallest one.
I want the smallest one. What?
The biggest one goes to Adam. Just for being such a trooper. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
coming.
But I am going to answer that question.
This is coming online. I don't